Were you silent or were you silenced? I just want to make it clear to everybody, there is no subject that's off limits. Almost unsurvivable sounds like there was a breaking point.
My biggest concern was history repeating itself.
You've said some pretty shocking things here. Wait, hold up, wait a minute.
I used to think that the reception of Sneakers by ITZY being generally poor was due to its presentation of concept. That was my main takeaway from Sneakers for the longest time. I think that was a lot of people's main takeaway. There have been thousands of think pieces about this. The royal concept that was introduced to us first set expectations in a place where the album was never intending to deliver upon. This dark, elegant imagery is not characterized by the music of the album at all. The Checkmate album is instead an exploration into the more colorful, vibrant, and experimental limits of the K-pop genre. That is the concept of the album though, Checkmate, to metaphorically corner you in a situation where you can't escape, to take you by surprise. Sneakers being as vibrant as it is in contrast with the royal imagery makes complete sense with this in mind, and is thematic to ITZY's identity of self-expression and confidence. It's a perfect album release in retrospect. I've changed my mind a lot about this in the past almost 3 years this album has been released, but today, there's not a single thing I would change about it. I'm not exaggerating when I say Sneakers is ITZY's best title track for all of these reasons, and the Checkmate album itself works as a pretty considerable magnum opus in their discography. It to this day presents ITZY's concept in the most cohesive way. What I think, quote, went wrong with this album is genuinely the way we approach K-pop in general. A shift somewhere in the fourth generation led a majority of our community towards wanting the most commercially accessible songs in a Western-minded context. Sophistication in terms of concept was on a steep rise with the advent of groups like IVE, who was taking over the world with Love Dive, and LE SSERAFIM, who had just debuted less than 2 months before Sneakers' release. When the Checkmate album released in mid-July, NewJeans was literally a week away from surprising the world with their debut. These groups presented their music and imagery in very sophisticated ways, a little less quirky and a lot more literal, whether it be the aloof girl next door, a fearless runway model, or a melodramatic student deciding to choose herself in the end. Sneakers is the primordial essence of K-pop, pushing against the boundaries of just how quirky and colorful this genre can be. It was a new territory of quirkiness, even for ITZY standards. The song, both sonically and narratively, fizzles out any sense of sophistication, taking how unserious it is all around very literally. It's what I've come to appreciate about this song the most, how ITZY is able to craft a call to action, inspiring the masses to put their sneakers on with such great conviction. They sing and perform Sneakers like they mean it very sincerely. They do. The music production itself also adds a lot of character. The song's narrative is developed even further with an elastic electropop beat, shifting in between sentimental piano sections in the pre-chorus and bridge to embody the Checkmate concept, working to musically take you by surprise. I think I've always known, but I now reconcile with the fact that Sneakers and the Checkmate album was always meant to be about subversive expectations. That's been a learning curve for me personally these past couple of years. The album's intended concept is not necessarily the inherent problem with its reception. It was always about subversion. I think whatever the quote folly of the Checkmate album is can generally be described as a product of its time. In retrospect, this was ITZY's moment of reckoning, the decisive release in the 2022 girl group revival to outline what makes ITZY unique in the current marketplace. What kills me in retrospect is that Sneakers did exactly what it needed to in this regard. It just wasn't up to most people's expectations of K-pop given the visual and sonic shift that was happening out of the most popular groups. I'm of the opinion that Sneakers was never going to be received well in a year like 2022. There isn't a way this concept could have been presented differently that would have changed the course of its overall reception. Despite all of this, Sneakers is ITZY's best domestic single in terms of performance. It was received incredibly well in Korea. I'm not so much ruminating about the numerical success of this album, more than I'm thinking about just how much damage this did to ITZY's identity in retrospect. What can be called, quote, Sneakersgate, the confusion about the contrast in concepts during the trailer period, eventually got back to the members of ITZY. I think it was Ryujin who clarified that Sneakers was in fact the title track and not some elaborate conceptual ruse. The division that works behind ITZY had to reconcile with Sneakersgate and likely prompted them to move away from doing the same thing in the releases in 2023 and going forward. It is still to this day kind of unavoidable, prompting think pieces about how they probably won't be able to rebound from all that's happened. I say this as a fan of ITZY, of course, but I genuinely think they're going to be fine. If JYP Entertainment can really hone in on developing album concepts, giving dimension to ITZY's projects, I think they really can't lose. Mr. Vampire and Untouchable are upper echelon tracks in ITZY's discography. They're still releasing incredible music. They just need album production that has a sense of intention behind it. I know Born to Be is a kind of special circumstance. It was an inconvenient time in ITZY's career all around, but it stands to this day as the greatest example of their untapped potential. A song like Mr. Vampire deserved a dedicated vampire concept, which is unfortunately not what we got in the end. I've already made a video about this specifically. ITZY already has it. They just need to be supported in their efforts by management. And actually, given the demoralized state of the K-pop community regarding softcore soundscapes and sophisticated aesthetics, ITZY and all they have to offer may be poised for retribution soon enough. These are my thoughts. My mind has changed a lot about sneakers. I genuinely think it's one of ITZY's best offerings, one of K-pop's best offerings when also considering the whole Checkmate album, and as much as I have expressed that I thought it was misunderstood in the past, I don't really believe that anymore. I think most people fully get sneakers. They understand it for what it is. It just embodies an aspect of K-pop that people have grown more volatile towards over the years out of interests in global success, but as we're seeing, that worldview or understanding seems to be on the steady decline. I wonder how sneakers would have been received if it were released today, now that we're in the thick of the sophisticated softcore epidemic. Would people have been more open to its ridiculousness? I genuinely don't know. I think a lot goes into that question, especially an artist's already established identity. ITZY is the group to take on this kind of concept, and I guess the reason why I continue to think about this release in retrospect so much is because, one, the music is incredibly good. I know Sneakers itself is not to everyone's musical taste, that's fine, but the Checkmate album has insanely good offerings of production. What I want especially could have been a standalone single. I regret condemning Checkmate's concept, especially as we progress further into genuine and substantial issues with conceptual development. Checkmate can work as a gold standard. Teaser fishing is one part of this issue, but overall concept development is something that I think deserves merit that we never really gave the time of day. In the end, teaser fishing was a part of the surprise element to the album's concept. There is substantial concept work in this project that was unfortunately eclipsed by the expectation of a more refined image of ITZY that people definitely got their hopes up for, but in retrospect, I think there's a lot of value for appreciating this project for what it actually is and what it actually set out to do. Doing this is what has led me to sincerely appreciating this song as a very important piece to ITZY's artistic identity. Sneakers is incredibly well produced, leans into the more ridiculous lyrical elements of K-pop while tying itself back to a theme of self-confidence. It is fun, whimsical, and quirky all around. It represents a lot of the aspects to K-pop that I love the most. All in all, Sneakers is ITZY's best song in my humble opinion. That title shifts back and forth between Not Shy, which is another ITZY title track that I do not play about, and of course Wannabe. My favorite ITZY songs are always changing, but Sneakers often takes that title. It's my favorite song of theirs right now. That is all from me. A kind of retrospective, but more so just me musing about Sneakers. I think about this song and album a lot. It's a victim of its time, as I see it. If it were released today, maybe we would have put our sneakers on, but we'll truly never know, unfortunately. But let me know what you think about this. If your opinion on Sneakers has changed over time, do you see the outcome of its reception in a different way, and so on? Yeah, thanks for watching this. If you did, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time.